طيب. Question says, is it obligatory for a sister, or is she obligated to niqab? For instance, brother wants to marry a sister, she doesn't niqab, but he's already telling her and letting her know that if they get married, he wants her to niqab. Now we have already know that it is not wajib, and the Prophet ﷺ has said that a woman covers everything besides this and that, the face and the hands. So is this debate rather a sister should wear tayyib? Jazakallahu khairan for the question. Empty your cup, sister. We don't know that it's not obligatory for a sister to cover her hands and her face. We never said that we agree with that. We cannot say that when we ask a question. What's the ruling on covering the hands and the face? And if a sister feels that it is not obligatory, does she have to listen to her husband or potential husband? But we can't say that we know, that's not true. All right? So there are rules. And the first rule, or one of the first rules, alaykum salam to Allah. Allah yafadhak, wa yarfa bik. Hayyak Allah. Hayyak Allah.
هذا فعلا
Alhamdulillah khair.
تمام
Barakallah
بارك
fik.
فيك حياك الله
Jazakallah khair. So we can't necessarily say that. Okay? We can't necessarily say that. So we have to get rid of pre-assumptions, and we have to go into an issue without no bias. Alright? We can't go into an issue when we think and we feel. We have to go into an issue without no thinking and no feeling and use the dalil. And if you can't use the dalil yourself, that's fine. You go behind those who can use the dalil, the people of knowledge, the ulama. At the end of the day, if is a very simple, easy answer. You like the brother likes you. You don't want to wear the niqab and the gloves, he wants you to wear the niqab and the gloves. Which one is stronger? Your love and like of him, or vice versa? If you really want to be with him like that, and he really doesn't want to allow you not to wearing the hands, wearing the niqab and the gloves, it depends on who's going to win. It's that simple. You really want to marry the brother, but you don't want to cover your hands and the face. Which of the two is stronger? Is the brother worth it? Bismillah. Is he asking you something bad? Is going to make you a better Muslim or a worse Muslim? Alright? And vice versa for the brother. You want to marry the sister, but she says, I do not want to cover my hands and my face. Period. I cannot cover my hands and my face, period. Is the sister worth it? Can you be patient upon that? Will you marry the sister knowing that she's not going to do that? If you know that you don't have the sabr, and it's not going to fit in your lifestyle, and you feel that it is haram, it's obligatory to cover the hands and the face, don't waste your time with the sister. And don't waste your time with the brother. Don't marry the sister and say later on she's going to cover, later on she's going to do it, later on she's going to, no, don't do that. Because in most cases, it never happens later on. And that's the first thing the argument's going to come up. 2 months later, 3 months later, they come to the imam's office, my wife doesn't cover her hands and her face. That's the first thing the sister's going to say. I told him before we got married that I have to work and I don't want to cover my what? Hands and face. It's just that simple, and Allah knows best. Regardless whether it's obligatory or not. Is asabi'a to love your people? Is it asabi'a? I think this microphone maybe it's too much. Is it asabi'a to love your people and to want good for them? It's a hadith that states, حُبُّ الْوَطَنِ مِنَ الْإِيمَانِ. Loving your country is an act of faith. The ulama of Islam, they say this hadith is fabricated and it's made up. Rather, they say it's worse than fabricated. They say this hadith has no origin to it. It's no asl to it. It's not a liar that's in the chain of narration. It's just la asla la. And the reasons why they say it's totally made up and why it's false, they say that loving one's nation, loving one's people is natural. And it is never ever a manifestation of faith. It's not a manifestation of faith to love where you come from and the people where you come from, naturally. Everyone understand this? They say that doesn't need iman to love where you're from and to miss your home, to be homesick. That's natural. So loving your country, loving your people in general is a natural thing. And it's not necessarily a blameworthy thing. Now you love them like you love Muslims, that's a different story. You love them like you love righteous, pious Muslims on the Sunnah, that's a different story. You love them in front of Allah and His Messenger, equal to Allah and His Messenger, that's a different story. But to want good for them, and to give them da'wah, and to want them to be guided, and want them to be upon the Sunnah, and that's the food that you eat, and the clothes that you wear, and the neighborhood and the climate that you're used to, that's not asabiyya. Asabiyya is what you come, or you put that before Quran and Sunnah. They're misguided, they are astray, they're misled, they're stubborn, they don't want the haqq, and you choose to befriend them. Instead of those who are being guided and trying to strive for righteousness and trying to strive what? For piety. So there's a difference. There's a difference between the two, all right? So at the end of the day, the Quran and the Sunnah clearly tells us to warn those who are closest to us. To warn those who are closest to us. وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ. Allah says, and warn your ashira. Warn your tribe, your kith and your kin. Warn the aqrabeen, those who are closest to you. That's natural. And they deserve your good treatment before anyone else. But that doesn't mean the only people that I'll teach and lecture with and go to is someone that's from my race or my country. La, it doesn't mean that. Color, race, gender, age, these are all barriers that come in front of actual content of a person. If you're thorough, then you're thorough. If you're cool, then you're cool. Black, white, purple, green, orange. Young, old, it doesn't matter. There are black people that aren't thorough, and there are white people that are thorough. There are young people that are wise, and there are older people that are foolish. Why can that? It's not about color and race. It's not about where you come from. And that's the only people that you'll deal with. That's wrong, and we do not support that, and we don't condone that. We do not support that, and we do not condone that. But that does not mean that you ignore and neglect the immediate needs of your own people. That doesn't mean that. That you neglect and ignore the immediate needs of your own people. It doesn't mean that you neglect and ignore the ills of your society. That doesn't mean that. That does not mean that. So once more, there's a balance, Ikhwan. There's a what? There's a balance. There's a balance, and Allah knows best. Is there a time when innovation can be a good thing? If it's a worldly issue, of course. We should innovate things in this dunya. We should make things in the hayat dunya. As far as the deen, no. There's no good innovation. There's no bid'ah hasana. And if there is bid'ah hasana mentioned by some scholars and some of the people of knowledge, then in most cases, they're not meaning actual bid'ah. They're meaning something that's already been proven, but it's been revived and rejuvenated. They mean something which is generally unprescribed. It could go one or two ways, and someone formulated it and categorized it and made it into a system. That's one thing, all right? But to make an act of ibadah that is not proven by the Quran and the Sunnah, and to do it and to stick to it and to adhere to it and call to it, I don't think there's no scholar that's going to say that that exists in Islam. And I could be mistaken. So there's no good innovation when it comes to ibadah. And Allah knows best. Can a husband take his wife back after agreeing to a khula when he didn't accept the dowry back during the iddah? A widespread mistake that many people have is that the khula is invalid if the mahar is not returned. We have not understood the concept of khula. The khula is like a prisoner, someone that you've captured. Obviously they want their freedom. Let me go. And I say, no, heck no, I'm not letting you go. Please let me go. No, you're mine and you're staying. I'll offer you money. Really? How much money? Such and such. I'm a very wealthy man in my lands. The money will be sent into your account. We'll make an agreement and a negotiation. You let me go. No problem. You can go. Or one country says, we have your hostages. We have POWs. We shot down planes. We have your soldiers in our custody. They have secrets. They have delicate intelligence with them, information. We don't want them to crack under pressure and then give our secrets. So we will exchange prisoners. Are we understanding this? Or as a show and a sign of our good faith and the will towards moving to making a relationship between our two countries, we're going to let our prisoners go for free. But of course there has to be the media there. It has to be public. They have to see that we're a better country than they are. We're letting the prisoners go. We didn't torture them. They're not skinny and starving. Let's see what they'll do. Fight. There is not a condition that you have to pay for a prisoner's release. If someone lets the prisoner go by their own goodwill, then alhamdulillah. So a woman wants to get separated and the man refuses. He says, I will not make the talaq. I'm not giving you the khula. And she says, I'll give you back the gold ring. I'll give you back the diamond ring. I'll give you such and such amount of money. And he says, okay, no problem. Khalas. So it's not necessarily a shart, a condition, and a stipulation that the money has to be given back for the khula to be valid. I would understand this is not a shart. And that's clearly mentioned in the Quran, fi maftadat bihi. The law uses the words fadat, fi maftadat, iftada, a fidat, a ransom. And as I just have proven and explained to you, a prisoner can be released without a what? A ransom. That's the whole concept of a ransom, is to let someone go for a cost, or let them go without any cost. So it's not necessarily a condition, nor is it necessarily a stipulation. If the husband demands it, and he wants it back, the khula can be valid, but she has to pay it back. It's a debt that she has to repay. And if he says you can go without any money, then it's no problem as well. Everyone understand the concept? And Allah knows best. That's in brief, because that's a very long discussion among the ulama of Islam on what is khula. Is khula talaq or not? Is it a fasakh or not? Allahu a'lam. Around the time of the holidays, if someone says happy holidays, is it haram to say happy holiday back? Say have a nice day. Thank you. Be safe. Take care. Something like that. If Hajj is prescribed for every Muslim and Muslimah, if a woman has the money and the sanity to do it, and she doesn't have only sons, husband or male relative, does she have to want? Or does she have to wait? Between a brother and a sister who gives the fight. I know him. Traveling without a mahram in 2019. Some of the ulama of Islam, they say a woman can travel in 2019 and other times in which there's safety, in which there's widespread safety. Some of the ulama of Islam, they said that a woman can travel with a group of sisters. Some of them said she can travel by herself as long as the road is safe, as we have explained what Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said regarding this. And others, they say, and this is the default, is that it's haram, and you must have a mahram. And many of those ulama, they say that a woman is not obliged to make hajj until she has a mahram. She's not obliged. The address is not given to her until she actually has a mahram. It is a huge difference between something being obligatory, something being valid. They say that it's not even obligatory. It doesn't even begin becoming obligatory until she has a mahram. Everyone understand this? And if she made hajj without a mahram, it does not mean that the hajj is invalid. She could live in Mecca. Doesn't need a mahram to travel. Or she could go with a group, and even if she got sin according to that hadith, it doesn't mean that the hajj is invalid. And that's because hajj and safar are not connected. There's not no talazum between the two. Someone can make hajj without what? Traveling. But most people have to travel. And Allah knows best. I work in a pharmacy and I dispense some meds that have gelatin, like most capsules and some cough syrup, and have alcohol in them. Am I a part? At the end of the day, the concept of gelatin in foods is a debatable issue, let alone gelatin in medicine. Consuming that as a byproduct. I don't think no one buys a pill or a capsule because they want to eat the flesh of swine or the fat of swine. Most people, when they take medicine, they take it as it's something nasty and disgusting and it tastes bad. Vitamins don't taste good. And that's why they made gummy vitamins. And that's why they made vitamins with has a sweet taste of it. Because no one is looking forward to eating medicine. So the concept of, is it halal to use the flesh of swine or the fat of swine or certain animal byproducts like sugar and cheese, okay? Is it permissible for these things to be consumed by a Muslim? Wine inside of food, beer battered fish, is that permissible? Are you eating it because it tastes like beer? Is there any alcohol content left? Or is it an ingredient in the oil and in the flour and in the batter of the fish? So that in itself is an issue of research. So if that's an issue of research and it's possible to be halal, then of course min bab awla in a medicine in which no one is eating for a taste. So bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, hopefully there's nothing wrong with it, inshallah. And if you're doubtful, try your best to avoid it. And if you cannot avoid it, ask Allah for His forgiveness and give an extra sadaqah. And Allah knows best. Says, if you like a brother and express that you do and he said he isn't ready, you ask Allah to remove the feelings from your heart if it's not going to work out. But every time you see the brother, the butterflies come back again. What should I do? Be patient. And maybe you have to diversify your technique. Maybe you have to send someone else to ask the brother, or send him a message, or send him a book, or send him a gift. Maybe you have to explain to him why you're a good candidate for a wife. Maybe you have to explain, you need me as a wife, trust me. Whether you realize it or not, I'm the one for you. And if you've exerted all of yourself, and you've done everything that you possibly can, then khalas. Be pleased with it. And if it was truly made for you, then Allah would have made it easy. If it was made for you, Allah would have brought the brother to you. So you have to be pleased. So obviously there's going to be a conflict with regards to quitting too fast and with regards to stubbornly continuing to fight. It's a balance. Quitting and giving up. We don't know what's qadr. It's, mashallah, qadr Allah, He doesn't like you. You don't know that. You have to try. But once you've exerted yourself and you've tried, sometimes you have to say what? Khalas, qadr Allah. I've made my position clear. If he wants to marry me, he'll come and he'll pursue me. And Allah knows best. What is the ruling on giving away something that someone gave to you? It's not necessarily haram. It may be culturally looked down upon. Recycling a gift. It's a reality. And many of the pious predecessors, they would make a difference and a distinction between al-adab wa sunnah. Etiquette and the actual sunnah etiquette. As Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned, when you eat food, the 10 things that are now applicable when it's time to eat food. Some of those things being sunnah, some of those things being adab. Just because it's a good thing to do doesn't mean it's the sunnah to do. Everyone understand this? There's a huge difference between the two. Washing your hands before you eat, is that sunnah or is that adab? Washing your hands after you eat, is that sunnah or is that adab? Washing out your mouth after you eat, is that sunnah or is that adab? So in Saudi Arabia, you go into a restaurant, you'll find people washing out their mouths with soap after they eat meat and rice. They'll wash out their mouths with soap. Ever seen this, John Umrah or Hajj? They wash out their mouths with soap. In Saudi Arabia, that's the what? That's the adab. But that's not necessarily the what? The sunnah. Everyone understand this? So it depends. What? It depends. Just because a good thing doesn't mean it's a religious practice. And just because a thing is not a religious practice, it does not mean that it isn't a good thing. Listen carefully. Just because something is a religious practice doesn't mean it's a cultural adab, cultural norm. And just because something is a cultural norm, but it's not proven in the sunnah, it doesn't mean that it's automatically a bad thing. Everyone understand this? And Allah knows best. What hadith are people referring to when they say we have to keep our feet close, or the shaitan will run through the ranks? Is it just for men? There are many hadiths about straightening the rows. Many hadiths on this. About the ruling, the sin of those who don't straighten the rows, how to straighten the rows, the consequence of not straightening the rows. There are many hadiths on this. Imam al-Bukhari has a chapter in his Sahih Babu ithmi man lam yusawi as-sufuf. He says the sin of those who don't straighten the rows. Okay, rahimahullah. The sin of those who do not straighten their rows. Imam al-Bukhari's madhab is that it's obligatory to straighten the rows. Everyone understand this? And most of the ulama held the view that it was only recommended. And in other hadiths with regards to heel, with regards to chest, the Prophet would touch our chest, he would brush our shoulders. There are many hadiths on this issue, all right? And it's not just for men. It's not just for men. It's for men and for women. And Allah knows best. What is the rule on giving away? What is said about asking trick questions? Is there any harm in it, as we just explained? What do you mean? Sometimes the only way you can get a valid answer is through tricking someone. Sometimes, and not all of the times, I said. That's not the default, that's not the asl. And many of the people of Hadith, they would do this. They would go to muhaddiths, and they would ask them certain questions. And they would trick Hadith questions to see the true strength of the muhaddith's memory. As I said before, if something is always prepared and ready-made, you can't see the true knowledge of a person. Everyone understand this? What they did with Imam al-Bukhari, they tricked. They threw 100 hadiths at him, and all 100 hadiths were bogus. They were mixed. They were out of order, out of sync. And Imam al-Bukhari, not only did he stand firm, but he told them what was right and what was wrong. And obviously they gave him the respect that he deserved based off of that. So it depends. It what? It depends. Tricking someone, trying to get someone to fall into a mistake, no. It has to be a legitimate Islamic benefit. And it has to be done with someone who's pious and righteous. Someone who's pious and righteous. And Allah knows best. And there are many stories of the ulama of hadith with regards to that. Regarding clothing, is the wearing of the true religion shirk? Does the one who wears the clothes committing shirk? I can't necessarily say shirk, associating partners with Allah, could be kufr. Every act of kufr is an act of shirk. And every act of shirk is an act of kufr. Every act of shirk is kufr, and every act of kufr is not necessarily shirk. So just because it isn't shirk doesn't mean it's permissible to wear those clothes that say true religion. Me personally, I wouldn't be caught dead in a shirt or a pair of pants that said true religion and had a Buddha on it. I wouldn't be caught dead wearing that. Even if it's not a religious brand, and not talking about religion, I wouldn't be caught dead wearing that. And Allah knows best. Regarding women who have a lack of religious faith in Islam, the question is, does Muslim women have to cover? A Muslim woman has to cover. There's no question about that. Anyone who's read the Quran knows that. If the Prophet ﷺ's wives were commanded to be asked questions from behind the veil, and Allah says that's pure for your hearts and for their hearts, then what do you think about you and me in 2019? It was the Prophet's wives. They could never ever get remarried. They could never get remarried after him. They were going to be widows until death. And they had to be asked from behind what? A hijab. And Allah clearly mentions the reason behind this. That is pure for both of your hearts. In the 33rd chapter of the Quran al-Kareem. So women have to cover, just like men have to cover. Men have to cover as well. You have to dress modestly. You cannot walk around wearing tight, short clothes on, sheer clothes on. Women are attracted to men as well. Regarding teaching, can any woman start a markaz study group for women only to learn from? If she's qualified, if she has the knowledge, then she should do so. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, من استطاع منكم أن يستتر من النار ولو بشق تمرة فليفعل أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. It says anyone who can protect himself from the hellfire should do so, even if it's half of a day. Even if it's half of a day. So if you have the knowledge and you're qualified, and there are people who need that knowledge, why not? As long as you're not doing something which is haram against the Quran and Sunnah, why not? Start up the study group, start the markaz. As long as it's not against the Quran and the Sunnah. Assalamu alaikum. May Allah reward you with good. What is your advice to a woman being a second wife? A man divorced his first wife and wants to remarry again into polygamy, and the wife that he is already married to have a problem with him taking on a second wife after she was a second wife herself. Allahumma. Do unto others that you want what? Others to do unto you. You have to be mindful of this. Polygamy is a system that's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it's done properly, then we'll all reap the fruits therefrom. And if it's done improperly, then of course we may suffer. Secondly, brothers and sisters, we have to understand something. Is that there's no system that is perfect that's going to be practiced flawlessly. The system could be perfect, but we are flawed as humans. So polygamy, oftentimes people, they go into it with a full cup once again. I don't want to be in a situation, I don't want to be a second or third wife because it never works out. I know it's from Allah, I believe in it, I know it's from the Quran, but. Tell you, no problem. If that's the case, then you shouldn't get married. And you shouldn't be a what? A first wife. And that's because marriage and having one wife in Islam is also from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that system is perfect, but it's practiced how? With or without flaws? Of course. So if that's your rationale, then what? Don't get married at all. Everyone understand the point? Men abuse women, do they not? Do they provide for them all the times? No, they don't. Do they give them their rights? No, they don't. They do much wrong. And there are some men who have 2 wives, 3 wives, and they're just, and they're equal, and they're fair. It's not about numbers. It's about the practice. Everyone understand this? So, Yanni, that's my advice, and along those best. How can the masjid accommodate child with autism? We answered this question already. How can they accommodate the child? Accommodate the child. Educate the people. Raise the awareness of the condition. Maybe there can be a professional in the masjid that can help the child with autism. But most masjids are severely lacking in basic professionals. Security, professional security. How many masjids have it all the time? A professional imam. Not someone who just studied, but a what? A professional, trained imam, formally studied, taught. Most of us are lacking in these basic things, let alone someone with autism. Unfortunately, how many masjids have sign language translation for the khutbahs? How many masjids have wheelchair accessible entrances and exits, Jaffa? How many? That you know of in Philadelphia. Let alone having someone who's professionally trained to deal with someone with autism. So try your best to feel Allah the best way you know how. And as I said before, everyone should be patient with the child. And you should be mindful of when you bring the child to what event. Jumu'ah on the front row. It's not wise. Wahakada. Wallahu alam. What would be the difference between the 4 schools of thought and Salafi? Does it make sense for a Muslim upon the Salaf to also follow a particular madhab? That's a very, very, very long discussion. An extremely long, in-depth discussion. In brief, the 4 Imams are from the righteous Muslims of the past. They're from the predecessors of the past. All right? That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is, what is your definition of Salafi? And there lies no doubt in 2019, everyone does not have the same understanding of what a Salafi is or who the Salaf are. And anyone who says that is not telling the truth. So it depends on what you mean. It depends on what you mean. At the end of the day, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they respect all of the scholars of Islam. And they acknowledge the contributions of all of the scholars of Islam. And they do not claim that there's one scholar that was absolutely better than everyone else. And they do not claim that one scholar is exempt from mistake and error. They don't claim this with their speech, nor do they claim it with their actions. Pay attention. Because many people, they'll make the lip service easily. They say, we admit, we know Sheikh Fulayh is a human, and he doesn't make mistakes. But their actions prove the 101% opposite. You understand this? How would you feel, Mikhail Fai said, I know you're a Muslim and I agree that you're a Muslim. You walk by me, say Salaam Alaikum. I walk past you. I smirk. I put down my head. I'm having a dinner at my house. I'm not coming. I'm sick. I don't visit you. I give you no rights whatsoever. No regard as you being a Muslim in existence. What's stronger, my words or my actions now? What other question? I'm not saying that brother Mufti Muhammad Muneer, whatever his name is. I don't believe that he's exempt from mistakes, but everything I say is the absolute truth, and you run with it and jump off a cliff with it. You gotta listen to Hadith disciple. No, he said it, Mufti said it. Your actions prove that you do believe that about me, that I am infallible and I don't make mistakes. So we have to be mindful. We don't believe that there's one scholar who knows everything. And we do not believe that there's one scholar who's ma'soom, exempt from mistakes. I said, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. This, that, Allahu A'lam. But the orthodox way of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah is that we respect the 4 Imams, and there's nothing wrong with studying one of the traditional schools. There's nothing wrong with studying one of the traditional schools of thought. Following it is a deeper discussion. Sticking to it blindly, fanatically, is a what? Deeper, different discussion. And Allah knows best. A man asked his wife to abort a child that she is carrying because he did not want his other wives to know he had married again. She was told that this is permissible because the soul has not been breathed into the child. What is the ruling on this? We have two different things here. We have the Islamic ruling, and we have that which is advisable and that which is best. That which is advisable and that which is best is never to tell your wife to abort a child, unless it is proven medically that it's going to be a severe and major problem for the wife and the child, or one of the two. And the ulama of Islam and the modern day fuqaha, they differ on this issue. Is it permissible to abort a child with regards to medical danger? 4 months, 3 months, 80 days, 120 days, etc. Everyone understand this? So that's first and foremost, is the ruling, and is it advised? It's definitely ill-advised. Don't tell your wife to abort a child. Don't tell your wife to abort a child. Unless it's a necessity. And even if it is a necessity, we said that there's a what? A detailed discussion about that. Everyone understand that? A detailed discussion on that. As far as is it permissible, some of the ulama of Islam, and not all of them, hold the view that if the child is in the first 40 days or first 80 days, and some may even say the first 120 days, the soul has not been given. And if there's no soul, then it's nothing more than a lump of flesh. That may sound harsh or crude or mean, but that's the bitter reality. If there's no soul in the human being, then it is of no sacredness. Everyone understand this? But that doesn't mean that you should get the people to do that. Because one day it's abort this day, then it's another day, then it's this, and it's that, and it's that. It's too much going on. Alright? So I wouldn't advise with that at all, and Allah knows best. Assalamu alaikum. Can you please explain what is a major student of knowledge? What credentials qualify one to be this? Seems to be a new term that just appeared. Major and minor. That's basic English. Macro and micro. That you'll find that in the dictionary. Major and minor. Macro and micro. That's not new. At the end of the day, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu and others, it is said that they said, كَانَ الْعِلْمُ نُقْطَةً فَكَثَّرَهَا الْجُهَالِ. They say that knowledge was once a small blot of ink. And the ignoramuses, the ignorant people that came and they smeared it and rubbed it and stretched it all over the place. Knowledge was simple and basic and clear. And the people have overcomplicated it. They've overcomplicated it. All right? So we have a very long discussion on a scholar. What is a scholar? What is a student of knowledge? His name is mentioned. We say, Hafidhullah. His name is mentioned. We say, Waffaqahullah. This brother's name is mentioned. Sheikh is on the flyer. And this one is his brother Fulan, or Imam Fulan, or student Fulan. His credentials are on the flyer, his aren't, etc. If you have this nickname, it's haram. If people call you that, they can't say this, so on and so forth. This is the culture that we live in today. This is the culture in which we live in today. At the end of the day, is be real. Ustuqillaha yasduq. Be truthful with Allah, Allah will be truthful with you. Just keep it real. The truth shall set you free. Ka'b ibn Malik radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he was accused of the Prophet ﷺ of being hypocritical or being from among the munafiqeen, he was boycotted. Allah mandated their boycott and his companions, and they were not allowed to be with the Muslims and their wives for many, many days. And then Allah Azza wa Jal, He sent down the declaration of their Tawbah, and that they were not munafiqun. And when the Prophet asked Ka'b radiallahu anhu, Ka'b, he did nothing more but tell the Prophet the bitter truth. And he says, Ala bis-sidqi anjani, that Allah did save me by telling the truth. So be real. And that's when Allah said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha wa kunu ma'as-sadiqin. Oh, you who believe, fear Allah, and be with the truthful. Don't be with the munafiqun, be with the mu'minun. Be truthful. So be upright and be honest. Just keep it real. If there's someone that's from your masjid and your association and your dawah group, you put his credentials on a flyer. And you mention he's a graduate and he did this and he studied and he studied and he studied and he studied. And then there's someone that's not a part of your dawah group or your dawah organization or your website, the first thing you say is, credentials don't matter. Degrees don't matter. It doesn't matter how long you studied or what you do. You're not keeping it real. You're not keeping it real. You're not being honest. You're being hypocritical once more. Everyone understand this? You're not keeping it real. This person comes, gives a class, fill up the whole entire masjid. Another brother comes and gives a class, he's calling to himself. He's a scholar, he's answering questions, but he does the same thing. And you promote that on your social media platforms. Keep it real, be honest. This person is a major student of knowledge and he studied overseas for 2 years. This person is a minor student of knowledge and he studied overseas for 20 years. Come on, man. Keep it real. Stop being fake. Stop lying to yourself. What hadith are people referring to when they say, we did that already? When we're reading du'as, do we have to use tajweed? Not necessarily, no. If Ubaydullah is a male slave of Allah, is it Ubaydatullah is the female servant of Allah? It's Amatullah. Amatullah. And Ibadullah is Ima'ullah. La tamna'u Ima'allahi masajidullah. What is the grammatical difference between ibn and bin when they both mean son? It depends on where the name or what type of name is being used. So my name, Muhammad ibn Muneer. Muhammad and Muneer are both proper names for two males. So you're going to write Muhammad, Mim, Ha, Mim, Dal, and you're going to put Ba, Noon, and not Alif, Ba, Noon. And that's because, the word Ibn is mentioned between two proper masculine names. That's in Arabic. As far as if you said Mufti ibn Muneer, then that may be a different story. Mufti is not a proper actual name. It's a title, nickname, or whatever it's called. It's not an actual specific name. Alright? So you may put the alif in front of the ba. Everyone understand this? So in the Arabic language, there are qawa'idul imla, rules of dictation, rules of writing. And from that is when to use the hamzatul wasl and when not to use the hamzatul wasl. And that's one example of when and when not to use it. Another time when you should use it is when the name carries on to the next line, the margin. So let's say you wrote Muhammad ibn Muneer, and there was no more space. All you wrote is Muhammad. And on the next line, you're going to say Ibn Muneer. You start off with the hamzatul wasl. You start off with the hamzatul wasl. As far as English, then obviously, English is open. Bin, Ibn, all same difference. And Allah knows best. Or in Umrah, when cutting or clipping your hair, if I have individual braids, do I clip from each braid? That's the best and the safest thing to do. That's the best and the safest thing to do. What's the specific proof that a woman cuts the tip of her index finger? What's the dalil from the Sunnah that states that? What's the proof for that? What Ibn Umar did in this one, different story. What's the dalil from the Prophet that that's how much hair has to be cut? So the safest thing to do is to take a tip from each braid, each lock. That's the safest thing to do. As far as the issue, that's a very long discussion among the people of knowledge on what do you have to cut from your hair. When reading du'as, tayyib. And if we have more index cards, I think it's easier if we just wrote the question on one side of the card. Inshallah ta'ala. Can we eat or drink during Jumu'ah? What nullifies the Jumu'ah and what is the expiation? You should not eat and drink during Jumu'ah. If it's extremely hot and a person took a sip of water, then perhaps there's nothing wrong with that, especially for the khatib. But you should sit still and attentive. What nullifies the Jumu'ah? Many things nullify the Jumu'ah. Talking unnecessarily is not an emergency. Unnecessary movement, which is consistent and abundant. Many things that could possibly nullify your Jumu'ah. And Allah knows best. As far as what's the expiation, you seek Allah's forgiveness. And if you have no Jumu'ah, then you have to make Salatul Dhuhr. Is it true that the jinn are with us in the bathroom and if we open the door, they run out? Allah knows best if they run out the bathroom. What's important is إِنَّهُ يَرَاكُمْ هُوَ وَقَبِيلُهُ. Allah says He and His tribe see you from means and ways which you see them not. So the shayateen and the jinn, the demons, they are a part of our aqidah, the ghaib, the unseen. Just like the angels are a part of our aqidah of the unseen. But from the wisdom of the unseen and belief in it is that we are supposed to be mindful of it and not stuck on it. Mindful but never stuck. There are angels, but angel here, there, angel under the desk on the top. Nah, no. You don't get obsessed with it. There's jinn in the bathroom. Is there jinn on the toilet? Is there jinn on the ceiling? Is the jinn going to grab me? Is the jinn looking at my prop? You don't get obsessed with it. You're mindful but never obsessed. You're mindful but never stuck. Everyone understand this? And that's not what Allah wanted from us. To live our lives in anxiety and fear and terror because of the unseen world. Everyone understand this? And the same applies to the seen world, the living world. You're my enemy. I see you. You see me. Just chill. You're over there, I'm over here. You don't cross the boundaries, I don't cross the boundaries. I keep my eyes on you, you keep your eyes on me. It doesn't mean that I'm living in anxiety 24/7, right or wrong. It's just basic, simple concept of life. And many people, they over-romanticize the jinn. All right? They become too obsessed with it. So you have to be mindful of that. And oftentimes a person finds the normal, traditional, orthodox teachings of Islam to be boring. And they need something exciting and stimulating, and that can be found in the concept of jinn. Sleeping on the jinn, marrying the jinn. Who's going to ask that question? Who even wants to sleep with a jinn? Why would you want to sleep with something that you can't even barely see? That's not a part of your word. There's not enough women in the dunya. You burnt out that much from haram that you have to sleep with a jinn woman just to become stimulated. Something isn't right. Something what? Something isn't right. And Allah knows best. Huh, Mick? Something ain't right, akhi. And what you desire to be with a jinn, huh? It says, when exactly does Salat al-Fajr and Salat al-Asr end? When do we make it up if we miss it? How do we wait, or do we pray it the night after, or right after? Salat al-Fajr goes out when the sun rises. And Salat al-Asr goes out when the sun sets. But that doesn't mean that you're allowed to delay Salat al-Asr unnecessarily, according to most of the ulama of Islam. Most schools of thought, they say that Asr has two times. There's a preferred time, and there's a time which is unlawful to make it unless it is a necessity. Unless it's a necessity. And we know the other ulama, they say that's when Salat al-Asr actually comes in. An hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes later. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and his disciples. Out with him is that if Salat al-Asr comes in at 3 p.m., make it at 3:15, 3:05, 3:20. It's unnecessary to make it at 4. Unnecessary to make it at 5 unless it is a need or a necessity. You can't stop the car. You have to put someone to sleep. You're in the middle of something which is very, very, very dangerous. You can't get down. Your lunch break is going to be in 20 more minutes. Asr came in at 3. My break is at 3:45. That's one thing. But to just be lazy and lethargic and delay Asr unnecessarily, no. And the same applies with regards to Salat al-Fajr. In general. As far as if you miss it, then make it up as soon as you remember. If the sun is rising or setting, make up Fajr, make up Asr. Don't delay making up the prayer if you don't have to. Can a sister pray if her dress is a couple of inches above our ankles and have pants on? If the pants are loose, if they're not fitting, if her odor is covered well, then hopefully it's la haraj, inshallah ta'ala. How do you perform a sahu when you forget sajda? Do you perform it when you forget anything in salah? Do you say anything in the sajda? If you make a mistake in a surah and you caught it afterward, can you recite another surah to make up for it? So sujood al-sahu is very simple, inshallah ta'ala. You cannot understand sujood al-sahu unless you understand the things that you have to do in the prayer. And unless you understand the things that you must do in the prayer. That's what sujood al-sahu is for. A mistake about recitation? No. Leaving off something which is recommended? Not necessarily. But it's a staple, basic part of your salah that you forgot about. You must make that mistake, fix it, and then complete it and finish it with the sajda salah, like sheetrock. Someone punches a hole in the wall. What's the first thing that you have to do? Paint the wall? Put the gloss on the wall? What's the first thing you do? Then you do what? You do what? Shave it down, right? Make sure that, then you do what? Paint it, and then you do what? Come on. The wall gotta be right? It's a very good example if you think about it. The first thing you have to do is fix the hole in the wall. So I forgot Surah Al-Fatiha. I forgot Ruku'. I forgot this sajda. You can't just say I'm gonna make sajda something. No. There's no painting a hole in the wall. You have to do what? Then you paint it. The sajda sahu is finishing your prayer without no glitch and no error. And there's a time to make it before the salam, after the salam. The details of that we can't get into right now. And obviously, what should you say in the sajda? Say what you would normally say in any other sajda. Say what you would normally say in any other sajda. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. If you make a mistake in a surah and you caught it afterward, you came recite, just fix the mistake. You made a mistake in the surah to Shams, Someone corrected you or you thought about it, just finish the surah. Finish it, inshallah ta'ala. Who named the surahs in the Quran, and why does some surahs have two names, like Surah 40, Ghafir, Mu'min, and Surah 76, Insan, Dahr? Al-Muhim, some surahs were clearly named by the Prophet ﷺ, without any question. Some surahs are clearly named by the Prophet ﷺ. And there are other surahs that were named by the companions, either under the instruction of the Prophet indirectly, it's not mentioned, or they themselves made ijtihad and came up with the name of the surah. At the end of the day, it's the Quran. It's the speech of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Subhanalladhi asra bi abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-harami ila al-masjid al-aqsa alladhi barakna hawlahu. That ayah right there is the speech of Allah, unquestionably. Whether you call it Surah Bani Israel, or Surah Al-Isra, or Surah 17, matters not. But that is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How perfect is Allah who took His servant on a journey from Mecca to Jerusalem in one night. That's the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what I've quoted in Arabic. That's the speech of Allah. Everyone understand this? So therefore, the proof that the Prophet didn't necessarily name every surah is the fact that scholars give certain surahs more than one name. And it's a difference of opinion. So for one aspect, Surah Al-Baqarah, one could call it the heifer. Or one could also say Surah Bani Israel. Who is spoken about in that surah more, Bani Israel or the cow? Without a question. But the ulama, they call it Baqarah. So there's sometimes the issues of ijtihad. Al-Isra, the night journey. From one aspect, that's the main theme of that surah. And other scholars, they call it Bani Israel. Because Allah, He opens up and He speaks about what He did for Bani Israel and how they did not necessarily fulfill their covenant. So you may differ on what's the main theme or the favorite part of something. Why get that? And Allah knows best. If you're reading the Quran during and someone walks in and gives salam, should you break it and respond or ignore and continue the Quran? Wave your hand gently. As Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrated from Bilal, that the Prophet sallam, ashara, he made a brief gesture with his hand. And Allah knows best. In the Sunnah of Imam Abi Dawood. How do you differentiate between being genuine and showing off when people want you to lead salah because of your voice? That's a difficult question. The Prophet ﷺ has allowed us and commanded us to beautify our voice, to recite in a sweet, melodious way. No doubt about that. And we're also supposed to have sincerity. So how can you be sincere when you're trying to sound nice? It's difficulty. And this is one of the levels of jihad that you have to fight, being a student of knowledge, and being a scholar, and being a leader of prayer. Everyone understand this? I have a khutbah to give. Am I going to sit here and say, alaykum salam, that I'm not going to prepare my khutbah, I want to make it sound nice, I want to be smooth, I want to be eloquent, I want it to be captivating? Of course, because that's your job, to get it across to the people and to break and penetrate their hearts. But at the same time, it can't be a thing in which it's all about me and what I sound like and what I look like and how I'm spitting and quoting. So there has to be a balance, and oftentimes making a balance is difficult. Next question says, does not having a sutra invalidate the salah? No, it doesn't. How tall it should be? It should be at least, let's say, like this. At least this size. At least. The back of a saddle. The back of a saddle. The back of a saddle. Can a living being be a sutra like a baby? I wouldn't make a baby a sutra because the baby may not necessarily stand still. And the baby may be carrying some impurities on it. But a grown man or a grown woman, there's nothing wrong with that. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If I have a little party at my house, who leads the prayer? The host or the one who knows the most Quran? To know that, does everyone start testing what they know? The host should be the initial imam. And if you mandate someone to lead the salah, alhamdulillah. There's nothing wrong with that. Tafaddal. No. Go ahead. We know that you have the most tajweed, the most knowledge. Bismillah. Babas. What's the difference? What's the direction for the Qibla in the West? And how do we calculate it without technology? Sometimes technology is faulty. It depends on what you know about direction. It depends on what you know about astronomy. It depends on what you know about the stars and the North Star. It depends on how much knowledge of the dunya you have. And as we've explained before, there are many Islamic rulings that you cannot properly understand without a certain amount of worldly, secular knowledge. There are many, many Islamic rulings that you can't even begin to apply unless you know the worldly fiqh behind it. And from that is navigation. From it is direction. Most of us, we live in a city. When's the last time you've been lost? Absolutely lost. No buildings, no signs, no GPS, no phone, no corner store, nothing. Everyone understand this? So a brother who's been in the army is not like someone who's been living in the city all of his life. He's been trained to find the direction, to look at the stars, to look at the trees, the moss. He knows concept of direction. Many of us aren't necessarily like that because our lives in the city are spoiled. Our lives are spoiled. We don't even know the stars. What star is that? North Star? Is that Little Dipper, Big Dipper? So oftentimes we don't know these things. So stick with those who are learning and skilled in these things and avoid making ijtihad when it's convenient for you to make ijtihad. Everyone understand this? Don't mix and match. Don't mix and match. It'll lead to ruin. One day it's the compass, it's the Brit schedule. The next day we're going to go on our own. Be mindful of that. If you don't have the necessary worldly knowledge and not the Islamic knowledge, and the what? Worldly knowledge is a huge difference. Can I close my eyes during a prayer to limit the distractions that may be on the floor, like cell phones or intricate designs on the prayer rug? We've explained that in an entire lecture of Ibn Qayyim. Ibn Qayyim's view is that it's permissible to close the eyes in the salah. What does eating from the people of the book entail? Like eating from Chick-fil-A, or eating Hebrew National. As far as Hebrew National, I would eat it. As far as Chick-fil-A, I would not eat it. Something that is supposed to be kosher, I would eat it. Something that's farm raised, hand slaughtered by Christians that are practicing, I would eat it. Whether you call them Amish or whatever. Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, no way. Impossible. For argument's sake that they're Jews and Christians, that's a discussion. For argument's sake, is the animal being slaughtered the proper way? How can an animal be slaughtered with mass production? They're serving 1 million people. They're serving billions around the world. Are they taking the time to take a sharp blade and to go ear to ear with the animal and saying in the name of Allah, or not saying in the name of other than Allah? So it's a problem. So if a Muslim whose name was Ali or Ahmed or Abdul Majid, if he took an axe and banged an animal upside of his head with it, or a sledgehammer, or electrocuted it, the meat will be what? Haram. The meat will be haram. And if a Jew or Christian, they're Ahlul Kitab, they did the same thing, the meat will also be what? Haram. Everyone understand this? So oftentimes people, they get stuck in the argument of Ahlul Kitab. And that, as I said, is a debate in itself. Can you say that they are Ahlul Kitab? Or are they secular, nominal atheists? Who's working in the slaughterhouse? A Buddhist? An atheist? Everyone understand this? Is it a Christian person working in the slaughterhouse? Or someone who has no religion whatsoever? Everyone understand this or not? Let alone the fact, if they are Jew and Christian, are they actually killing the animal in the what? The proper way. So I would never ever eat from a place like that. And I would be selective about a place that says kosher. But if it's a normal place like Chick-fil-A or McDonald's, I wouldn't eat from. I would not eat the meat from that place. And I would not consider it to be halal at all. And I don't think, as we've said in this message before, I don't think that's what Sheikh Abdul Aziz bin Baz rahimahullah meant when he gave that fatwa some 20-something, 30 years ago. I don't think he meant that. I don't think that that was his intention. And I think, I've read the fatwa myself many times, and Allah knows best, I don't know, what I think is that Sheikh bin Baz was saying the meat that comes from Jews and Christians, and you don't know that it's killed in an improper way, in an un-Islamic way, it's permissible based off of the default, the asl. But how long ago was that? And how much knowledge do we have about Purdue and Tyson? Can we say that we don't know that they're killing the chicken in a haram way? Can we say that? Is that truthful? Is that an honest statement? Are we oblivious to how slaughterhouses work? I don't think that's being honest and true. And Allah surely knows best. Can we wear yarn or weave braids that are the same length as our hair? Can we wear false eyelashes? As far as wearing yarn or weave, then we have explained that on the first part that we released about extending and enhancing your hair. And what the ulama say about that, which they agree and that which they differ, regarding adding anything to your hair. At the end of the day, I would say to stay away from it. Don't put anything in your hair that's not from your hair. Be pleased with Allah's creation. If you have short hair, there's nothing wrong with having short hair. There are hundreds of styles you can do with short hair. There are things that you can do to make yourself look attractive and pretty and appealing to your husband with short hair, or for yourself, or in front of your sisters. So I would not advise to wear yarn, and I would not say that it's permissible. But that's not what other ulama, they clearly have a discussion on this issue. Some of them even say things more than yarn. So that's all we're going to say for now. As far as wearing fake eyelashes, as long as it's not harmful to your eyes, and it's only temporary, and it's done in the house, hopefully there's nothing wrong with it. But once more, why are you wearing the fake eyelashes? Because you're insecure, you're displeased, you're uncontent with what Allah has given you, or you want to enhance the natural beauty that Allah has given you. Allah knows best. Most people caught up in the fashion industry, it's the first or the second. What would you say? It's the first. Extremely insecure and displeased with what Allah has given them. So that's something which is even bigger than that, deeper than the fiqh issue, is the psychology behind fashion. I like this socks, I like this color, it makes me feel good, it's nice, it's cool, nice jacket. But I can wear what? We can wear what? Any jacket. We can go without wearing a jacket, without wearing a fly brand name. And if I don't have a fly brand name pair of socks on, it doesn't mean that I'm miserable and I hate my feet. So you have to be mindful of this. What does eating from the people book? I'll tell you. Initially, the Prophet Muhammad didn't read or write. So when did he learn? The letters that were sent to different leaders, were they from his own writing? They were written by his disciples, the companions. Like you dictate a letter. I, Muhammad ibn Muneer, hereby declare that you will pay me each and every month this amount of money. Got that? No, scratch that out. No. Fix this. And I may be illiterate, but I can clearly what? Speak. That's how the Prophet's letters were written. What is the odor between Muslim sister or even real blood sisters? It's a very long discussion among the people of knowledge. At the end of the day, if you wear clothes which are accepted normally in a balanced, modest fashion, then bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, hopefully that's enough. Once more, something which is culturally accepted. Some cultures, if you wore this and that, it would not be accepted. But some cultures are extreme on both sides. Some cultures in which nakedness and nudity is accepted. Some cultures in which any type of skin or arm is totally unaccepted. You have to wear a potato sack. Neither of those two cultures are what? Balanced. Nor is it based off of simple modesty. All right? So that's, I think, the most accurate answer for that question. What you can show in front of a Muslim woman or a non-Muslim woman. That which is culturally accepted and is balanced. And it is not directly infringing upon the text of Quran and Sunnah. And Allah knows best. Is there an explanation for a book of Hadith like tafsir for the Quran? Of course. There are tons and tons and tons of books of explanation of Hadith. Tons of past and of present. Of Bukhari, of Muslim. Explanation of 40 Hadith of Nawawi. There are tons of books. And the science of Hadith is like the science of the Quran. One of the signs of the last day is when the mother will give birth to her master. What does that mean? Different interpretations. Some of the ulama of Islam, they say there will be so many Islamic conquests and so much triumph. There will be a lot of jihad, fi sabilillah. And when there's jihad, there will be prisoners. And from those prisoners will be concubines. And those women, they will become concubines and they will give birth to someone who follows the lineage and the status of the father. In Islam, the child follows the deen of the parents, and the child follows the concept of freedom or slavery. It depends. So if a man is free, he has a concubine, and he gives birth to, the concubine gives birth to a child, the child now follows his what? It's free. And eventually, Allahu Alam, that child could grow up and become an inheritor of his father's wealth. Everyone understand this? Another interpretation of this hadith is, and that's a long discussion, another interpretation of the hadith is what? Is that things will become topsy-turvy. Things will become topsy-turvy. In which the child will be the grown-up. The young person has no respect for the old person. The student is now the coach. The child disrespects the parent, talks back to the parent. Shut up, you listen. No, I don't feel like it. I don't want to. I don't want to. As children do today. They'll tell you to the face what they don't or do want to do. In other words, the master has become the servant and servant has become the what? The master. And Allah knows best. There's a hadith that someone told me about when a person sins, they have 6 hours to repent before this is written down. Is that hadith sahih? No, the hadith is not sahih. And we've explained this on Mufti Q&A before. That is not an authentic hadith. Does someone get the same reward for visiting sick people when patients come to you if they work in a hospital or a pharmacy? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Can we watch the Omar series for the purpose of listening to the Arabic language for comprehension? We've explained before, sometimes Arabic, you got to get it when you can get it. It's just that simple. When I was learning Arabic, was everything perfect, and I had to do what? I had to do what you can do. Jamia days. I had to do what I had to do. You know, the brothers would treat me a certain way in the circle. No doubt. No doubt. No doubt, Jaffa. I had to get in, you got to get in when you get in. It's a comic book, a child's cartoon, whatever you can if you're truly hungry and if you want to learn Arabic. And oftentimes people, they make an excuse for their weakness and a lack of diligence under an Islamic ruling. It's haram to watch this or to read this or listen to this. And sometimes they're making an excuse for not being diligent. But some things are haram. No doubt about that. How does one discard old papers that might have Allah's name or ayats from the Quran? You should burn them, inshallah ta'ala. The best way is to burn them. Some say bury them, but the best way is to burn them. Ripping them up, if it's a good shredder, then hopefully it's fine. But as far as you just ripping it, then Allah's name could still be there. Alright? So it should be burnt, or a good quality shredder should be used, a paper shredder. Not shredder from Ninja Turtles. Tayyib. Moving forward. How do you know whether Sunnah is from the religion aspect or from his own liking? Are you talking about the Prophet ﷺ or somebody else? As far as the Prophet, then there are two ways. The first way is by being taught by a learned person. And the second way is by you yourself having the ability to read and to discern. So the Prophet, he spoke to the companions and told them to do it. He ordered them to do it. He mentioned the blessing of it, that Allah loves it. It was sent down upon this one and that one. That's clearly a religious sunnah. That could be a cultural norm as well. And then we have another thing which the Prophet did, and he never told the companions to do it. And he never warned them from leaving it off. And he never explained this blessing and this reward, like we're in Turkey. That is not necessarily sunnah. But if you do it because you want to look like the Prophet and look like the Muslims, then inshallah you get a reward in that. So wearing a scarf. One says, that's not a sunnah. Why are you looking like an Arab? It's not from your culture, so on and so forth. But when someone sees him, the first thing they associate that is with what? Muslim. So it's a good thing. Even if it is not an act of worship, it's still, inshallah, what? A good thing. And Allah knows best. How do we know whether it's sunnah? Is some hadith isnad has 5 companions' names and after radiallahu anhu, which is for a single person? Who claims that dua? Shouldn't it be radiallahu anhu? If it's more than one companion, then of course it should be radiallahu anhu. Is there, or how many hadiths are there in which there are 5 companions in one chain of narration? How many are there? What's the difference between Sheikh, Alim, Mufti, Imam, Ustad? Are they the same as someone having a PhD, meaning that they earned the title because they went through a necessary schooling? As we previously said about our culture, we have common sense, we have the Islamic ruling, and we have our culture. So let's start off with common sense. I don't care what they call you or what your name or your title is. If you know what you're talking about and you're good and you're talented and you're strong, that's all that matters. There's medical malpractice all of the time. And the one who cuts too far, cuts too deep, or removes the wrong limb is a what? A what? A PhD. But he messes up. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know the pharmacist doesn't know what medicine, whatever the case is. And there could be someone, your grandmother. You go to her and say, Grandma, my back is hurting. I have this pain, I have this rash. He says, oh yeah, let me see, take this, eat this. And 30 minutes it goes away. And she doesn't have a PhD. So titles don't mean anything. You understand that? That's first and foremost. Number 2, the Islamic ruling. If we have Quran and Sunnah and Ijma, consensus of this is the definitive line between alim and da'iyah. This is the definitive line between masters and PhD, graduate or not. Then alhamdulillah we have to submit to that. And if we don't have the Quran and the Sunnah to mandate that, then no holds barred. And it's open. This person may be considered a scholar, and he's not. And it's not about age, or sex, or gender, or race. Are we understand this or not? And then we have our culture. You go to a daycare, And on the name of the daycare is called what? Little what? Scholars. What do they mean by that? There's been bads and what they mean inside. They mean that we want our children to be smart, studious, professional, off the streets, away from drugs, away from alcohol. And we want them to be scholars. And any professional career that they seek and pursue, and they have mastered, they will be called scholars. I have 5 sons. One is a fighter, no doubt about it. He's always into fights. He's tough as nails. Son number 2, he grew up, he's always really handsome. Handsome man, smooth, mashallah. He's a ladies' man, right? That's my lover. My 3rd son is always into trouble. One way or another. He was always the trouble kid, always. The 4th son is an athlete. From day one, he was naturally good at basketball, football, boxing, anything he did, he was good at. And my 5th son was frail, was skinny, was shy, was quiet, and he read books from the time he woke up until the time he went to sleep. I'm going to call that son my what? My scholar. This is my scholar, and this is my advocate. This is my fighter, and this is my troubled one. So the concept of a scholar has a usage in English. And it doesn't mean someone who's from overseas. It doesn't mean someone who's a PhD. Now, in a professional realm, a scholar could be, is different meanings on a scholar. Sometimes the word scholar is mentioned for someone who has a PhD. Sometimes a scholar is used for a documentary. Someone who's an expert on a situation. So it depends. At the end of the day, guys, we get caught up in these names, and we get caught up in these titles, and oftentimes I don't feel that it's for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes people, they say things to downgrade someone. The proof for that is, I don't have to mention my own personal stories. When I was cool with you, it was what? Yo, Muf. Not even Mufti, what? Muf. Yo, Muf. Mufti. Now I'm no longer cool with you, now it's what? Muhammad ibn Muneer. Am I making this up? Am I? Okay, thank you. So I think we lack sincerity, and we lack maturity, and oftentimes we lack common sense. And Allah knows best. Are you ready to read the question, Sheikh? I've been waiting for you. You want to get a chair or whatever you feel comfortable with? Right. Fadl. You gotta raise your voice though. Fadl Jaffa. I'm sorry.
So the Prophet he mentions about cutting the hair evenly. Does that apply to the mustache? Because you have some barbers where they would get rid of the hair that leads to the nostril and they keep whatever is above the lip.
Clear. Where is the hadith in which the Prophet says keep the hair even?
I heard it.
The hadith that says shave it all or leave it all. If that's what you mean?
Yeah.
Right. Clear. So the nostrils can be cut, can be shaved, can be trimmed. That's not a part of the mustache at all. And the mustache is the thing which should be cut. And the ulama of Islam, they differ on what should be done with the mustache. Should it be shaved? Should it be trimmed? Or should it be lowered? That's a scholarly discussion on that ruling. Is it permissible to shave your mustache? Some say it's haram. The correct view is that all 3 ways are permissible. But the nose hair has nothing to do with it. The hair on your neck, your Adam's apple, has nothing to do with it. And Allah knows best. Fadl.
Are some alcohols najis like ethyl, ethanol, etc.?
Right. Many ulama say that alcohol is najis, physically and spiritually, or morally. They say that it itself is impure, and it's also spiritually impure. The spiritual impurity of alcohol, crystal clear. You get drunk, you fornicate, you kill people, you crash, etc. But if this was alcohol in this, everybody with me? And let's say, for example, a person, he did this. It spilled on the table. Alcohol spilled on the table, right? You gotta teach, no doubt. Can I touch it? This is a reality. Can I pray upon it or not? So many ulama say, no, that's haram. I have to now wash my face and wash my hands. Because it's just like urine or menstrual blood or excrement. And there are other ulama who say that the khamr is rijsun min amin ash-shaytani fajtanibuhu. It's spiritually filthy, but physically it's what? Just like water. So I could pray on the carpet upon which I spilled alcohol. All right? You could be standing somewhere and a kafir may throw a bottle of beer at you, which has happened before. Or you're walking down the street and a drunk person trips and stumbles into you. Oh, I'm sorry. And he drops a 40 on you. Old English. Or what? Code 45. Which one? St. Ides? I'm with him. I'm with him. At the end of the day, Heineken, whatever it is. At the end of the day. Everyone understand the concept? So we have to understand what is the concept. Because many times we read translations and then people, they don't get the concept. That's one reason why I did that. People, they don't get the concept. What do you mean it's khamr najis? Because that's what a thing being najis, that's the only benefit behind it. Can I touch it? Can I sell it? Can I come in what? Contact with it? Can I make prayer with it, etc.? So the correct view, and Allah knows best, is that alcohol is spiritually impure, but it is physically pure. Cologne is permissible, rubbing alcohol is permissible, and it's not necessarily najis. And Allah surely knows best.
Does the water have to run over your feet, or is it sufficient to take a handful and wipe it over the foot?
Doesn't have to run over it. What's important is that whatever needs to be washed or wet is wet. The ulama of Islam, they differ on pouring versus massaging. Ibn Malik, rahimahullah, and others, Shokani, they held the view that you have to wipe it, massage the body part. And others, they say, jarayanun ma. Just pouring the water down on it and it's covered and it becomes wet, that's sufficient. And Allah knows best.
Can we talk in the bathroom for a necessity?
Yes, inshallah. There's nothing wrong with talking in the bathroom out of necessity. There's no proof stating that you cannot. There's hadiths about relieving yourself and talking. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يَمْقُطُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ. Relieving yourself. Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah, when he was asked this question, when someone is making istinja, can they return the salams? He says, yes, they can return the salams. Because al-istinja is not taghawwud. It is not tabawwud. It's not urination or defecation. And Allah knows best. But it's not necessarily the best thing. But if it's a necessity, that's one thing. The keys are there. And Allah knows best. You say to someone that it's an emergency. Yo, I need to go real quick. They're on the dresser. One thing. And Allah knows best.
Are there any books that to explain the 99 names of Allah that go into detail and clear, plain English?
Clear, plain English. I don't know. I know there are a few books that have been translated that are good in Arabic or written for students of knowledge. How good and plain and simple is the English? La adri. I would humbly say the book of Sheikh Abdul Razak Ibn Abdul Muhsin and Abad al-Badr, Fiqh al-Asma al-Husna. The summarized version is in English, but I have not read it in English. I don't know how clear and simple the English is, but I would guess that it's not that bad. And Allah knows best. Quite muthla, no doubt, but how clear and simple is the Sahih? That's a different story. Let alone the fact that Al-Qawaid al-Muthla it's not a super hard book, but Sheikh Uthaymeen's writing style is not necessarily for every layman person on the street. That's for talib al-ilm. So if it's for talib al-ilm in Arabic, putting into robotic mechanical English is going to be what? Even more. Wallahu alam.
How many brothers on average come to Fajr often that are aged between 22 to 30 that are looking for a wife?
I don't know. It depends on masjid to masjid. Some masjids are 100 brothers for Fajr. Some may be one. Some masjids may be locked and closed for Fajr. Allahu musta'an.
Is there any circumstance in which wanting what another person has and not wanting them to have it is permissible?
No, there's no circumstances in which you want something and you don't want someone else to have it. That's hasad. That's the hasad, which is from the traits and characteristics of al-maghdubi alayhim, as Shaykh Sam Taymiyyah mentioned. As far as he has a nice car, alhamdulillah for that, and I want a nice car like his. That's ghibta. There's nothing wrong with that. As far as I don't want you to have it at all, and I hate it when I see you driving in a nice car, then that is from that's a serious sin. It's a serious sin, and Allah knows best.
If someone is possessed by a jinn, is this something that they would be conscious enough to express to others?
Maybe, maybe not. It depends on the level of possession. When I was in Toronto a couple days ago, one masjid I went to, I had a personal meeting with some students. 2 mornings in a row, there was a jinn exorcism going on. 2 women were getting it done at the same time. It's a serious jinn inside of them. So I asked the imam of the masjid, what's going on? Jazakallah khairan. It said jinn al-ashiq, a jinn who's a lover. It's not like the jinn who is mischievous. Just like teenagers are different than grown people, the jinn are different. So some kids, they may break into a car and drive around with a stolen car, they have nothing else better to do. They're good kids, just caught up. They may get into some trouble, but they're good kids. They may be even scared. You scare them off, hey, get out of here. What you doing right on the wall? They run away. And then some of them, they pull out a gun on you or a knife on you. Say, what? Bleep, 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 and so on and so forth. It's different levels. Someone who's a murderer, a serial killer. It's not like someone who kills someone in self-defense. It's a difference. Someone who rapes someone. It's not like someone who just makes zina. It's different levels of crimes. So the jinn have different levels of personalities. A jinn may jump into someone because they're mischievous. The jinn is a mischievous jinn. The jinn may jump into someone because they're evil and envious. Or a jinn may jump into someone because they're in love with the person. So if the jinn possession is strong, there's no way that they're not going to be able to understand what's going on. Even if it's slight, it's going to something. Because there's no way that the jinn can be that strong in you and you not have no realization, because it's going to have an effect on your daily life. When you go to sleep, when you eat, your sex life, your work, everything is going to be affected by a jinn on that level, everything. And if you don't believe in jinn, and it's spooky or superstition or whatever the case may be, you're definitely going to know that something is off in your life. And this is one of the conflicts that we have between jinn versus schizophrenia. Many non-Muslims used to believe in the concept of demon and demon possession. Well, the movie, The Exorcist, the book rather, before the movie. And there was a time in which those Jesuits and those priests, they abolished their aqidah. And they said there's no such thing as demon possession. There's only schizophrenia. Mental illness. There's no such thing as a demon being inside someone. But what we can agree on, the point I'm trying to get to is that something's wrong. Whether it's schizophrenia or whether it's what? A jinn. Everyone understand this? And Allah knows best.
Is it permissible for the woman to write the khutbah even though she can't deliver it?
Sure, she can write the khutbah, why not? Let her write it for her husband. It's a good wife. Alhamdulillah. Save the husband, right? Save the husband time.
What are the reasons Allah and the Quran address men more than women, even though the women outnumber the men?
What are one of the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses men? Put this over here. Put this over here. No. Yeah, let's keep those before I start knocking them out first. What are some of the reasons why Allah addresses men in most cases more than women, even though women outnumber men? That's not in every time and every place. Every time and every place, women don't always outnumber men. That's not true. Sometimes, some places, no, these are the dumb ones. Sometimes in some places, women outnumber men, but not all of the time. That's number one. Number two is, sometimes, or many times, the people that the Messenger of Allah was sitting with were men. And most times, it was the men that he was sitting around. But there are several hadiths and several ayats which Allah addresses women. It speaks about women and speaks to women or about women regarding women. Reason number three, Allah Azza wa Jal, He clearly mentions بِمَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. Allah has given preference to some over others. Bottom line. And Allah knows best.
We're supposed to make 2 rak'ah when we enter the masjid, but this is an Islamic center. Does the same apply?
Making 2 rak'ah when we enter the masjid and sitting down. Mahdi did the same thing, and Muawiyah did the same thing. This is an Islamic center. That doesn't mean it's not a musalla. The musalla is a part of the Islamic center. The musalla takes the rulings, or most of the rulings of the what? Of the masjid. So if you come into any place in which there's a formal place of prayer, in which there are all 5 prayers made, Jumu'ah is made, you should pray before you sit down. And Allah knows best.
Do our loved ones in the grave know whether we're making dua for them or not? And can our dua now affect their condition?
Allah knows best what they know. Allah knows the extent of what they know. The Quran clearly denies and rejects them having the ability to go back and them having the ability to give instruction and advice. It's clearly mentioned. But does that mean that they have no realization whatsoever? Allah knows best. Ulama, they differ whether the dead people can hear or not in their graves. Sama al-amwat. It's a very long discussion of difference of opinion among the ulama of Islam. Certain hadiths affirm certain things. When the people walk away, the Prophet spoke about those who were killed in Badr. Okay? But the extent of what they hear and know and feel, only Allah knows. Does Allah give them the ability to know certain good, glad tidings in their graves? Maybe. Allahu Akbar. What's important is make dua for them. Make dua for them. At worst, the dua is not accepted. Or Allah does not decree what you ask for. At worst. And at best, Allah will accept your dua and forgive them or give them a higher status or alleviate them from whatever they've gone through in those graves. So make dua for your deceased Muslim relatives or friends. It can't hurt you. And most importantly, guys, we cannot forget, we oftentimes become narrow-minded and nearsighted. When you make dua for someone, it's not just about that person getting what you ask for, but you're making dua for yourself. You're making ibadah. You're benefiting from asking Allah. So simple, right? But when's the last time you actually thought about it like that? It's always, I'm going to make dua for you. I'm going to make dua for you. For you, for you, for you, for you. I'm sorry, I prayed for you. It didn't work. But I got a reward too, because I was worshiping Allah. And that's why we cannot forget that dua is the core and the kernel of worship. You understand this? That's the heart of an ibadah. It's calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You understand this? So you can never lose by making dua to Allah.
If brothers choose non-Muslim women over Muslim women, could this be considered oppression to the Muslim women?
Brothers choosing non-Muslim women over Muslim women, is this considered to be oppression? It's permissible to marry a chaste woman who's a Jew or a Christian, who's chaste. She's not a loose woman. But some of the ulama of Islam, they say not in our modern times. They say that was for a time and a place in which men were the men of the households, the leaders of the households. And things were not how they are now in a secular lifestyle, which we have equal rights to the children. The children could be Christian or Muslim. No. In Islam, if you marry a Jewish woman or a Christian woman and she's chaste and she's a true Jew or Christian, it is an agreed upon principle from the get-go. The children are going to follow my religion. They will not go to a synagogue. They should not go to a church. They will not wear a crucifix. They are Muslim. It is not a fair deal, i.e. And you marry a Christian or a Jewish woman today, except for a few people, in most cases, it's going to be a fair deal. Of course. They go to church, they go to your mosque, they go to my church. They go over to my parents' house for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Why not? They went to the Eid, no. A woman agrees, I want to live with this Muslim man, he's going to take care of me, provide for me. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm not ready to be a Muslim yet. I'm not a Muslim yet. But I know that you'll treat me right as a woman. Period. Done. If that is not the agreement, then it is haram to marry a woman from Ahlul Kitab. It cannot be done. So how many women are like that in 2019? Will the courts accept that? Everyone understand this? So it does. So marrying a Christian or Jewish woman in 2019 is something I would strongly advise against. Unless it's a woman that is on the verge of becoming a Muslim. Unless it's a woman that you've known, you have a relationship with, unfortunately. You have kids by her, you know her, and she wants to be a Muslim, but she just needs some encouragement. Maybe, mumkin. But just go and marry a Jewish or a Christian woman just like that, I would not advise with that at all. Period. All right? At the end of the day, if there are pious Muslim women out there, and the men choose to marry Christian women, it doesn't necessarily mean it's oppression. There are other brothers out there. Allah's earth is spacious. If you can't find them in your locale, there are other brothers that are dying for good Muslim sisters. And Allah knows best.
We have marriage certificates that states that we're married. Is there a divorce certificate, for example, if you want to get someone off of your insurance?
It's real, Ahi. Life is real. There's no sugarcoating life. I'm no longer your husband, so therefore, adios. You got to pay your own insurance. This is reality. At the end of the day, a certificate is not obligatory. to get married or to get divorced. It's not obligatory. It's a good thing. Perhaps recommended thing because people lie and people forget about stuff, especially brothers. It was the third divorce, it was the second divorce, and he knows that it was the third, but he said it's the second. No, it wasn't a divorce, it was a khula. It wasn't a khula, it was talaq. People lie. So that's why Allah tells us to have witnesses. And that's why Allah gives us the longest verse in the Quran, which is about writing down contractual agreements. So there should be a divorce certificate, but it's not mandatory, and Allah knows best.
If you're at work and salat comes in and you wait until you get home, is your prayer still accepted?
Only Allah knows what prayer is accepted. Is your prayer valid is the proper question. You can make your prayer on time and it may not be accepted. We don't know what's accepted. We're slaves. We don't know what our master accepts from us. We hope, we beg, we wish, but we don't know. You understand this? As far as is the prayer still valid, if you intentionally delay the salah until there's no longer any time for that prayer, then that prayer is invalid. Are you a disbeliever or not? That's a long discussion among the people of knowledge. And Allah knows best. You takfiri, Sheikh?
What is the amount you have to give for charity during the month of Ramadan?
There's no amount that you have to give in charity. The only time charity is obligatory is when there is a clear need for it and you have it and you're requested. Then you may have to give it. Other than that, charity is charity. Charity is not zakat. Zakat is mandatory. But there is a masjid that is needed in this locale. We need to have a masjid here. And you're wealthy, you're rich. Or even if you're not that wealthy, but you have the money and it's not hurting you, give it for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no obligatory charity in Ramadan. If you mean zakatul fitr, that's after Ramadan. That's after Ramadan. And it should be bid'nai ta'ala 4 scoops of grain, of food stuff, which is going to be approximately, let's say, 5 pounds, give or take, roughly 5 pounds, 2.5 kilos, give or take a little bit, 6 pounds, etc. As far as the money, some of the ulama of Islam, they hold the view that it's permissible to be given in money. Many of them do, but not all. Most say that it has to be food stuff. And we've explained that many, many times in many workshops. And Allah knows best.
Is it a sabia to love your people?
That's done. We did that already.
We did all of this?
Yeah.
And the aqidah and manhaj?
Go ahead.
Please explain the difference between aqidah and manhaj.
In brief, simple, aqidah is the theory. And the manhaj is the practice. In brief. Aqidah is about what you believe in and what you don't believe in. And al-manhaj is broader. There's manhaj about things that has nothing to do with aqidah. How we do things. What is our method? Everyone understand this? So there's a practice and then there's a theory. Obviously, this is another example and another manifestation of confusion and mixing apples and oranges. And the people, they say, oh, he's aqidah is Salafi, but he's Ikhwani manhaj. He has a good aqidah, we don't differ on that, but his manhaj is off, so on and so forth. What is a manhaj? A manhaj of what? He has manhaj problems. What do you mean by manhaj? Manhaj al-da'wah ila Allah, manhaj al-amr al-ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar, manhaj al-tarbiyah, manhaj munasahat al-hukam. The methodology of doing this, what do you mean? Average person just repeating stuff that they hear without no understanding. Tape recorders. Record, rewind, fast forward, that's it. Sound bites. You sit them down and ask them, they don't know. They don't know. But one thing that they do know is to talk about people that are more knowledgeable than them. They do know that. And that's interesting if you think about it. He'll admit of being ignorant. I don't know. But he knows to talk about someone that he knows is above him. I know that. He's older than me, but he's deviant. He's been overseas longer than I've been a Muslim, but he's still a what? A deviant. That's deep if you think about it. SubhanAllah. He doesn't know what he's saying, why he's saying it, but he knows that it's permissible to talk and to discredit someone else. Who is going to bear these sins on Yawm al-Qiyamah? Who's going to stand in front of Allah with that responsibility of misleading an entire generation or city or coast of people? Are we mindful of this? So we have to be careful, all right? Saying someone has a correct aqidah but the wrong manhaj. Is that even possible? And who was the first person to say that? And where did that come from? I would advise you guys with these types of questions is to read the history of the Middle East, and to read the history of Saudi Arabia, and to read the history of Egypt, and read what happened and what took place when people started separating things that the earlier Muslims never ever separated. Read what happened when people began to wedge their way into certain countries. The Wahhabi Aqidah in Najd is solid. So let's make a different manhaj now. Who's the first person to do this and to think like this and to separate the two? Read the history. The history is not hidden information. It's not no conspiracy theory. It's documented facts. Where this sheikh was and who he was with and what group he was with. It's documented facts. But most people who change their identity, the first thing that they do is they get rid of their past identity. They cover it up. And they abuse anyone who wishes to look into the archived information. Oh, you starting fitna. What do you mean the Sheikh Fulan was with the Ikhwan Muslimin? You trying to start fitna? No, I'm not. I'm reading history. It's a fact. So if Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari, rahimahullah, if he was with the Mu'tazila for 40 years, when he left off that i'tizal, you don't think there was nothing left? You don't think there were no traces of it for 40 years? If you're with somebody for a year, 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, there's not going to be no traces of that person on you? How is this? In Arabic they say, as-sahibu sahib. Character is a thief. The literal translation is, as-sahib, friend, is a puller. They pull you. So where have these things crept in? And how do they creep in into the methodology of Sunnah wal Jama'ah regarding ilm and da'wah and things like this? So read history, huh? And Allah knows best. Iqra, bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read.
Can a Muslim offer dua against an oppressor even though it may not be directly, but maybe, for example, to a mother or a sister?
It's permissible to make dua against someone who's oppressive and wrong, in general, wherever they are.
There is a practice amongst the disbelievers where they keep the ashes of their cremated loved ones. Is it permissible to offer salah in a home which contains these ashes?
Don't pray near the ashes. Stay away from the ashes. From one aspect, it's like a graveyard. From one aspect, it is. But from another aspect, it's not actual bones, it's ashes. And from another aspect, you may not have the ability to go somewhere else and pray. You may be forced to pray there. You may be living with your grandmother, and the urn is down the steps, and your room is up the steps. You may not have another place to go to. So can we say that it's the same as a masjid in which there's a grave? Can we say that? And if there's a grave in a house, doesn't mean it's haram to pray in the house. For sure, it's haram to pray in the masjid, no doubt about that. But there's a house in which I don't have no control over. I have no other choice but to make fajr in the house because the masjid is too far. There's no masjid in my town. So it depends. Try your best to feel all the best way you know how. And Allah knows best.
How should a brother approach a sister if he's interested in marriage and he does not know her wakil or wali?
With respect. Look at her like she's your own sister. Look at her like she's your own sister. Look at her like she's your mother or your daughter. There's nothing wrong with Assalamu alaikum sister, are you married? Assalamu alaikum sister, let's kind of get to the digits, right? Tell you. Do a simple, quick, and a khalas. How would you want someone talking to your sister? Staring at her, lusting over her, licking his lips and his chops? Sizing her up and down? It's a reality. Would you want some brother hunting down your sister like a wolf? And many brothers, they do that. They'll stalk a sister. They'll hunt her down. They'll undress her with their eyes, x-ray. Would you want someone doing that to your daughter? So there's nothing wrong with asking with basic respect. It gotta be simple. You don't gotta be robotic. Assalamu alaikum. I'm trying to get married. I saw you come out of the coffee shop. MashaAllah. Allah Mubarak. Look, this is my number. Bang. Call me. That's it. Have your wakil call me. That's it. Done. Over. It's that simple. Stop. Allahu Akbar. Next question. Get you back for that one, man. That was a good one.
How does a sister without a mahram travel and visit other family members in different masajid and lectures?
Well, it's like we previously said. What is the rule of a woman traveling without a mahram? in our times. That's one issue. We've previously mentioned that. Number two, why do you have to travel to other masjids and lectures if it's inside of your own city? You don't need a mahram to go outside. You need a mahram to go from one part of Philly to the next. Philly to another city, different story. Different state, different story. Alright? It's just that simple, okay? So the first ruling is, can a woman travel with or without a mahram? We previously mentioned that already. Done. Secondly is, do you go to a different place? Do you have to go to a different city? Can you not learn in your own city? Or your own masjid or your own town? And there's nothing wrong with going from one section to another by yourself as long as it is safe outside. As long as it's what? Safe outside. No one knows best.
How do you respond to the lay Muslim who says we only take from the people upon Salafi or the Salaf?
Don't respond to him. I agree. We don't disagree with that. For argument's sake. For what? For argument's sake. No problem. For argument's sake. Is that absolutely a correct statement? It's not necessarily a correct statement, 100%. The library proves the opposite. And there are many, many other aspects that we don't want to get into right now. The point I'm trying to say is, why do you always have to agree? We have two teachers. One is upon this and one is upon that. Of course we're going to say take from him. No less. That's precedence. But is he actually upon the way of the Salaf? And if he has three things that qualify him, he also has two things which what? Disqualify him. Now what? And the same applies to the other teacher. He has this mistake, this error, but he has 5 other things which qualify him for being a teacher. Now what? You understand? So you don't always have to reply, and if you reply, I mean, just keep it simple, and Allah knows best.
What advice would you give to a new Muslim who truly wants to learn the deen? Should they focus on memorizing Quran and then dua?
They should focus on having good company. Good company. Stay in the company of righteous people. That's probably the most important thing for a new Muslim, in my humble opinion. What book, what name, making a ghusl, what masjid you go to, stay in a company of good people. Support system. After that is develop and nurture the relationship with your Lord. Because that's what Islam is. Islam is not just changing your name or wearing this type of dress or covering up. Islam is being connected to the Creator and only the Creator. And oftentimes we forget this. That's what Islam is. That's the difference between Islam and Christianity. That's it. If that comes from seeking knowledge, learning adhkar, memorizing the Quran, making dua, learning Arabic, going to a specific masjid, so be it.
How should a sister seek marriage? FYI, she's well into adulthood, she lives alone, works, etc.
Go to her local community masjid and tell her that she's looking for a husband. But obviously we have social media today, so that's outdated. Everything is on social media, right? One way or another. A sister could be married and she gets marriage proposals on social media. They see her picture, or she's pretty, or she has a lot of followers, or she's cool, or she whatever. So I don't see it as a difficult task in 2019, and Allah knows best.
What should you do in the salah if an error is made by the person leading?
Follow the person leading. He bears the mistake, he bears the error. Unless it's something which is totally against the salah. He stands up in the 5th rak'ah of Salat al-Isha, it's haram for you to stand up. You cannot follow him in that. If you're sure, if you're doubtful, then follow him. And let him bear the burden of the sujood al-sahw and of patching up and fixing the mistake.
Assalamu alaikum. Can a Muslim woman marry a non-Muslim man?
No, she cannot do that.
When you go to a public school, can you have non-Muslim friends?
You're not supposed to have non-Muslim friends even if you go to an Islamic school. Some people that go to Islamic school and they have kuffar friends. Alright? The bitter reality is, if you go to a non-Muslim school, it's only natural for you to have friends, unfortunately. So it's our duty to teach and educate our children that the system is perfect, but our practice of the system is a bit messed up. So if you're going to have an associate, someone that you're cool with, someone that you talk to in the school, make sure that they're not influencing you. And make sure that you call them to Islam. And make sure that they respect your religion. We play basketball, we do this, but don't ever say nothing funny about my religion, ever. Period. If my sister comes, my mother comes pick me up, don't ever say nothing about my religion. Don't say hallelujah and Jesus and Christmas, no. Keep it respectful. When it's time to pray, I'll be right back. I got to make salah. Don't offer me no weed or no alcohol or try to give me no talk. It has to be rules that are set. And your relationship with that non-Muslim is supposed to be limited. Limited. But obviously, that's like putting your hand down the lion's mouth and saying, don't bite. You go to school with them, you hang out with them, you play sports with them, it's going to happen. So what I'm trying to say is if it's going to happen, then at least do what? Try your best to manage the situation. And try your best to do what? Limit it. Put a cap on it, huh? Put restraints on the situation. And Allah knows best.
If a brother refuses to grant a khula but leaves the house, how long do the husband and wife have to be separated before they are considered divorced? For example, there has been no contact for 5 months.
If there's been no contact for 5 months, once more, go to your resident scholar. Go to your local imam, da'iya, ustadh, not yet. Whatever name is given to the qualified person that's running this masjid or markaz, and explain to him the situation. My husband did not grant me the khula. He's been missing for 5 months. And let him handle it from there.
Is suspicion and caution the same in terms of trusting people?
No, they're not the same. Suspicion and caution aren't the same. Be cautious. Doesn't mean you have to be suspicious. I'm cautious. Someone walks up to me, assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. A handshake, how you doing? That's it. I'm cautious. You don't have to get too close to me. You don't have to put your hands inside my pocket. You got your hands in your pocket the whole time. You look, nah. But I mean, I have to be looking and searching for something that is out of the ordinary. There's a difference between the two. There's a fine line between the two, and Allah knows best. Before we stop for Maghrib, we want to take a few questions from online. If you don't mind, guys. Question says, H.A. from New York. New York. Why is that Salafis oftentimes, if not most times, quote the modern day scholars and not the scholars of the past? Barakallahu fikum. May Allah grant you Jannah Firdaus. As we previously said before, the word Salafi or Salafis or Salafiyah is a broad term. It's a broad term. In Philadelphia or New York or America, let alone overseas. To the Muslims, it's a broad term. Non-Muslims. And let's just keep it real. There are people, there's someone whose name I could mention to you. If I quote it, you would say, A'udhu Billah, he's not Salafi. And to non-Muslims, they would consider him the top Salafi in the world. It's a reality. It's not an agreed upon terminology. It is not an agreed upon usage. And to be frank and to be honest, some of the early proponents of calling yourself Salafi, the whole entire purpose why they said that you can and you should and you must, oftentimes is non-existent today. Is non-existent today. That's in the real world. Living in the delusional world, of course it exists, but in the real world it doesn't. So, as I said, some of the early proponents, and it's not just Sheikh Al-Albani, there are others who are early proponents of using the word in terms of Salafi, such as Abdurrahman Abdul Khaliq, a name you probably never heard before unless you're from the old school. The what? The old school. Okay, old school. That was, and that's another concept, the different eras of Salafiyah. Because it never was Salafiyah before. Back then it was what? A dawah to Salafiyah. Salafi dawah. Then it became what? Who goes around and says, I'm on Salafi dawah? You ever heard someone say, when's the last time you heard someone say that? Or with a t-shirt or a hat? Honestly. Now it's just what? Salafiyah. They say you on that Salafiyah. He's not upon Salafiyah. And then it becomes, and it becomes, and it becomes, and it becomes. So one of the early proponents, or from them, those who said, the reason why you should call yourself Salafi is for distinction. Distinction. To show the people that you're not upon this type of bid'ah, and this type of cultural Islam, and this type of nonsense. Quran, Sunnah, as the Salaf understood. Sounds, in theory, a beautiful thing. In 2019, if I say I'm Salafi, what will other Salafis say? Of course you're not Salafi. So they call themselves Salafi, and let's say hypothetically I call myself Salafi. Where's their distinction at? Their distinction in the term no longer what? Exists. It doesn't exist anymore. Because I'm using it, you're using it, and 10 other people are using it. So the original purpose of the early proponents is not even what? It's outdated, for argument's sake. For argument's sake. Everyone understand this? And that is why they use other alternatives to determine a real Salafi versus a what? A fake Salafi. You go to this masjid, you're upon Salafi. You go to no, you're Hizbi. And there are other ways as well. Clear Salafiyah, strong Salafiyah, pure Salafiyah, organic Salafiyah. We're not making this stuff up. So this is critical thinking is needed. What? Critical thinking. Critical thinking is needed. So when we say Salafis, why some? It depends on who you're talking about and what's your definition. At the end of the day, the bottom line is we benefit from the people of knowledge, of past and of present. We benefit from the people of ilm, of past and of what? Present. We give the virtue to those who deserve virtue. Bottom line. As it's narrated, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala has said, فِيمَا رُوِيَ عَنْهَا أُمِرْنَا أَن نُنَزِّلَ النَّاسَ مَنَازِلَهُم. We've been ordered to give the people their due rights, their due status. So therefore, to say that the modern day scholars are equal and absolutely the same as the past and the ancient scholars, I don't think that's correct. And I think oftentimes people they get caught up in the whirlwind of modern day scholars. And that takes them away from, once more, the whole entire concept of da'wah to Salafiyah, which is to go back to the past, when things were pure and strong and organic, and the foreign and alien elements did not exist. It was unknown. And I'm gonna end my answer with one thing, which shows you the folly of everything, what they're saying. It doesn't make any sense. The people, they say, also they say the understanding of the Salaf al-Salih. You can't use this ayah, you can't use this hadith. But when they quote, who are they quoting from the Salaf al-Salih? They're quoting Sheikh Fulan was alive today, Sheikh Alan was alive today, Sheikh Fulan, and everyone is a modern day person. So for argument's sake, I'm not using the Salaf to understand the Quran and Sunnah, neither are you. For argument's sake. And if anyone was right, I'm quoting Ibn Qayyim, Ibn Taymiyyah, who's not necessarily from the Salaf, the technical meaning. You're quoting a scholar who's alive today, who could be a deviant tomorrow, and that has happened oftentimes. So who's really sticking to the orthodox right now? And all honesty, everyone understand this? So we have to be mindful of this, let alone the fact that was there a time in which the Salaf al-Salih lived like we lived as minorities? When was it historically documented that the Salaf lived under the rule of the Kuffar? And they were the minority under the Kuffar. So it's a very, very problematic issue now. So you have to be mindful. Benefit from those who are living and benefit from those who are dead. If you had to pick between living or dead, go with the dead. As it's narrated by Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala, he says, do not take the example of the living. فَإِنَّ الْحَيَّ لَا يُؤْمَنُ عَلَيْهِ الْفِتْنَةِ. Because someone who's living is never safe from fitna. مَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مُسْتَسَنًّا. Who wants to take the sunnah of someone? فَلْيَسْتَسَنْ بِمَنْ قَدْ مَاتَ. Then he should take the sunnah of one who has what? Died. Because the living person is never free. I say one day is halal, tomorrow say what? Haram. How many scholars have come to this country in which the masjids were full, packed from wall to wall, translating, so on and so on and so on and so forth. Today, what are they? How many times? Once? Twice? You understand the wisdom in that? So that one effort right there destroys the whole concept of only quoting modern day scholars. So you have to be mindful. And Allah knows the best. Khalas? You finished that batch? Oh, we're back online. I'm sorry. What time is the adhan, Abu Ma'ab? Isn't it hypocritical that Muslims didn't let naked people use the Kaaba when they finally owned it? I think that's a spammer. AG, Austin, Texas. What are the rules of matan criticism? There are many rules. Many rules. Many rules. And the ulama, they've explained this. If you want a specific book, then go back to Ibn Qayyim's work, Muneer al-Munif. Ibn Qayyim explains many principles of criticizing the Matum. This is a technical question about Ilm al-Hadith. Anyone who wants to learn the pure original way of Ahl al-Hadith, he has to read those books of Ahl al-Hadith. Now, one of the things which show you the concept of matan criticism is the lives of the Sahaba. Aisha radiallahu anha said, the Prophet never said that. Ibn Umar made a mistake. Umar made a mistake. Hudayfa made a mistake. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala, he says we should not leave off the sunnah of the kitab of Allah. We won't leave off the instructions from Allah and His Messenger. لِقَوْلِ امْرَأَةٍ لَا نَدْرِي أَحَفِظَتْ أَمْ نَسِيَتْ. We don't know whether she memorized it or whether she made a mistake. That one who is in the iddah receives nafaqah and sukna. You have to put her in the house and spend upon her if she's in the iddah period. He never said, or he criticized the narration that she mentioned to the Prophet because of what? That it conflicts with the teachings that are already established to him. When Abu Musa knocked on his door and he left, and the door servant told him who it was, and he went back to Abu Musa, he says, why did you leave? And he says, the Prophet says, Al-istidhanu thalath. 3 times you knock. If you're allowed inside, and if not, then leave. Where did you hear this from? Where did you get this from? If you don't tell me who corroborates your story, I'm going to beat your back. He criticized the metin based off of something which was unfamiliar to him. So the lives of the companions and the stories of the companions is a rich, lush pasture of learning about criticizing the metin, the text. And that's why some of the ulama say that in the naqt al-matin muqaddamun ala naqt al-sanad. Looking into the actual report instead of just looking into the actual reporter. Alright? So that's a very long discussion. Please go back to the classes and the lessons that we have done on the topic. And Allah knows best. Next question says, Assalamu alaikum Mufti. Ian from Melbourne. I'm supposed in Australia. Although there is a lot of goodness, khair, in being shy, what should one do if they're extremely shy when it comes to interacting with sisters even? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we have explained in the explanation of Riyadh al-Salihin, the words of Ibn Qayyim is that there's a difference between shyness and just weakness and incapacity. A person incapable of doing what they're supposed to be doing. There's a difference. So if you're shy in front of the opposite sex, or you're shy to do things and say things, that's one thing. But I'm the imam of the masjid, or I studied overseas, and I'm too shy to answer a question, or too shy to give a khutbah, or too shy to tell someone to fear Allah, it is no longer praiseworthy. It's now blameworthy. And it's not shyness, but it's now weakness. You're too weak to do what you're supposed to be doing. So if you can't keep a basic relationship with your friends, your family members, and do the things that Allah and His Messenger have placed upon you, then the shyness is not good anymore. Rather, Ibn Qayyim says that it's not even called shyness anymore. It's now called ajz. It's weakness. But shyness is a good thing. It's good to be shy. It's good to be bashful. Shyness can prevent you from doing bad things and being in bad places. But sometimes shyness is not a good thing. You get married, you can't be shy. You're a speaker, a student of knowledge, you can't be what? You have to break your shyness. Well, how can that? Allah knows best. Next question says, Abdul Hakim, Fort Worth, Texas. The book Fadlul Islam has many weak hadith. How should we deal with it? It's not just the book Fadlul Islam. There are many other books that have weak hadiths in them. Whether they're books of Ibn Abdul Wahhab or other than Ibn Abdul Wahhab. It's not just that one book. It's very simple. If you're a lay person, then deal with the commentator. Let the commentator handle it. Let him deal with it. Let him explain why and how. If you're not a layman and you're a student of knowledge, then you deal with it accordingly. It depends on your level of ilm. That's a very big problem with regards to, and we've said this earlier in the session today, we've been told weak hadiths are totally useless. We don't use weak hadiths, you don't mention weak hadiths. But this book of Ibn Qayyim, this book of Ibn Rajab, this book of Ibn Taymiyyah, this book of Ibn Abdul Wahhab, in the footnotes it says, this hadith has been declared weak by Al-Albani. This hadith, it's a problem. Something is wrong with our theory, and something is really wrong with our practice. It's a glitch. And this goes to show you what I just said on what is the way of the ulama, what is the way of the Salaf al-Salih, what is the way of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. It's not just black and white, easy piece of cake. There are different generations, there are different schools, there are different ways of dealing with issues. And it's not simplified and basic and easy. The people of the Sunnah don't use weak hadiths. It's not true. The people of the Sunnah never ever sit with someone who's from the people of innovations. That's not true. That's not true. We only take from this, but that's not true. We only go back to this one scholar. That's not what? That's not true. And the proof that that isn't true is the inconsistency between those classical books and what is being put out in the modern era. You understand? And Allah knows best. Question says, S.A., Ontario, Canada. Can a female wear red undergarments for her husband? Inshallah. There's nothing wrong with that. You can wear whatever color you want for your husband. M.N., Birmingham, UK. May Allah bless you. How is that najasa is parted in what time or Qibla is not when they both conditions of the salah. May Allah bless you for a very important question. This goes to show you the inconsistency of many fiqh principles and the inconsistency of many fiqh madhabs. An example of this is what I was just reading in the office from Sharh al-Kabir. They say that if you have najasa on your clothes and you take it off, your prayer is still valid. And they also say if you make the salah and afterwards you realize that you have najasa on your clothes, your prayer is still valid. So what if you pray without wudu? Is your prayer still valid? If you didn't face the qibla, is your prayer still valid? Covering the awrah, at-tahara min al-najasa, dukhul al-waqt, istiqbal al-qibla, all those things are also what? Shurut of the salah, is inconsistency. And this is why some of the ulama, they say that najasa being avoided in a prayer is not from the shurut of the salah. It is obligatory, yes. You have to avoid it, it's obligatory, but it's not a prerequisite of the salah. And they say if it was a prerequisite of the salah, then the Prophet ﷺ would have broken his prayer when he had the sandals that were impure and filthy. And how can you continue your prayer and you didn't have wudu? If you didn't have wudu, you started making salah, you make wudu, you have to start prayer from what? From the beginning. I'm not trying to get no fiqh debates with Ali Davis, because I know he's ready to jump on me. Have that man adeen Allah bihi. That's what we believe to be the truth. There are many inconsistencies in many fiqh madhabs. H.A. New York, is wearing the turban in cultural or sunnah? Is there a benefit to it? If the Prophet did it, should we also do it? Out of sheer love for him, even if there was no specific, etc. benefits to it. As we've said before, we'll say again, wearing a turban is not an absolute sunnah. It's not an absolute sunnah. It is a restricted sunnah. If you wear the turban and you want to look like the Prophet and be like the righteous Muslims, then inshallah, it is sunnah adah and it's a reward in bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. There are many benefits in it. As I said, looking like a Muslim and distinguishing yourself as a Muslim. And only Allah knows how many stories I could give you of the virtue of wearing a thobe and a kufi. Not like people who don't wear a thobe. You live in America. Wear pants. I totally disagree with that. If you want to wear pants and a shirt, that's fine. It's not haram to wear pants. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's also nothing wrong with wearing a thobe. But if I had to pick between the two, I would say a thobe is 101 times better. Or if not a thobe, a qamis. It doesn't have to be Saudi or Yemeni, any type of Islamic cultural garment. Why is it better? I can only base my opinion off my own personal experiences. When I was just in Toronto, we left the masjid, me and Brother Sam at nighttime. And as we walked around the corner, we were getting in the car, it was freezing cold. He said to me, he said, be careful, Mufti. He says that there's sugar that's around here. That's sugar. That's what he said. I was like, what sugar? Gun violence, drugs. He said, no, be careful. I'm like, what? Next thing you know, a lady walks up to me and she starts approaching me. So I look at her and then she says, oh, I'm sorry, forgive me, and walks off. He said, this is one of the worst places in Toronto for prostitution. It's one of the worst places in Toronto for prostitution. So Allah knows we're not exaggerating, it was freezing cold that night. And this poor woman was out there pacing back and forth looking for customers for $10, $20, $30. In the freezing cold, imagine that was your daughter or your mother. Selling herself to make measly money, sleeping with any creep on the streets in the freezing cold. And she said sorry to me because she walked near me. Why did she say sorry? Because she saw how I was what? Dressed. You're a religious guy. I'm sorry. I wouldn't have even approached you if I seen you wearing that dress. You understand the moral of the story? If I just had on pants, I could be just a normal John, a normal customer. And she may have approached me more and tried to grab me or throw herself on me. What if I had a fitna and a weakness of zina? What if, let's say, that I have a major fitna, I can never turn a woman down. If I wasn't wearing a thobe, I would have felt what? Victim, prey. But the sheer fact my thobe, it deterred her. What if I was looking for a prostitute that night? What if I was going to pay her? But she herself, she did what? She said, oh, sorry. Are you understand this? And I have tens of other stories in which the thobe has saved me, and a thobe has brought good rewards and benefits to me. And a thobe has been a major opportunity to give da'wah, to call people to Allah. So I'm only talking about my own experiences. Is it obligatory to wear a thobe? We never said that. Is it haram to wear pants? We never ever said that. Is it obligatory to wear a thobe? No, we don't say that. But we're talking about what we prefer and what we think is best. All right? And that's just one story from among what? Many. How many times we've been in situations? Allah knows best. We're going to stop here for the adhan. Jazakumullahu khairan. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina Muhammad.